last year I spoke at Direct Booking Summit in Amsterdam, and that was probably one of the most engaging audience that I've ever spoken in front of. Typically, whenever I do these talks, and I try to use lots of data and graphs, and the audience typically, whenever I put one of those up, I see the heads go down and looking at their phones. But in this audience, whenever there was a graph up, I see all the phones coming up trying to take pictures, which tells a lot about the type of audience group that we have in here. So this year, I brought 10 of those. I figured something that I think what a lot of people found useful last time were different insights that you could implement at your hotels immediately, and something that it's actually backed by data and some of the insights that we see. And the other thing that I wanted to really share was, rather than having this almost dogmatic focus on direct bookings and direct booking share in particular, that we should actually try and utilize all channels that are available to us and take a holistic look at hotel performance. Because when we do that, actually the end result is that we're going to try and drive direct bookings anyway. So the first thing, number one, I didn't set this up, but I think Triptease might have scheduled my talk in a way where this is a perfect segue. But a differentiated experience gives you a head start. So what I mean by that is exactly what Antoine talked half an hour about, and also the nice debate that we just had on stage. We don't think about it as often, but the type of experience that we deliver at our hotels actually is probably the biggest predictor of your direct booking share. To borrow the great words of, is it PC that was just here, nobody wants to stay in shitty hotels. And last year at the same conference, we also had Jeff Andrew, who's the CEO of World Hotels, who actually talked all about this as well, where he's trying to get his hotels to operate with the mindset of starting with why, right? It's the value and the vision that is shared by the brand and the connection you make with your customer is actually more important in driving direct bookings. So once I've seen that talk, I was curious about what that looked like at our hotels. And when I looked at our hotels and started to kind of look at the web booking share index, and all that is my hotel's website revenue divided by the OTA's room nights. And so if my web share index is 100, that means my website does just as many room nights as all of the OTAs combined. And when I look at it, and I've got from independents to major global brands to regional brands, on here, and as you can see, there's no real clear, you just get a very different set of results. You have an independent, so we have 3 independent hotels, and all 3 of them deliver all very different types of results. And those are the ones that are in reds. But there are some global brands here that are at the far end of that graph that also has some hotels that are on the other side of the graph. So there are a lot of things that affect this as well, which is your kind of regions and the locations and things like that, and the way your hotel operates in terms of groups versus transient will all affect this. But what is really noticeable are the hotels that are right at about 100 mark, and certainly the hotels that are colored in these green and the red, and so the first 5 hotels here on the left. So the hotel on the far left, that is probably the most luxurious hotel that we have in that particular city. And so any celebrities or any influencers or anybody who's got lots of cash, that is the de facto hotel that person will stay. The city does a lot of music events and lots of different events and things, and we just happen to have or that hotel happens to have that reputation that it is the hotel to stay in. So it doesn't do a lot of OTA business, gets a lot of direct bookings because of it. But what's more remarkable are the hotels that are in green. So the hotels that are in green are the 3 hotels within the brand that we have recently created. They're called One Hotels. It was created by our chairman and founder, Barry Sternlicht, and it operates with this vision and ethos of nature-inspired travel. So everything about that experience is connected with that thought of sustainability. Everything designed in the room are made with recyclable products. You know, your headboard on the bed will tell you where it came from, and it happens to be like some basketball court in Wisconsin or something, you know, reclaimed wood. Every hanger will tell you that it's got some kind of story because it was made from a recyclable product, so it used to be somebody's homework. You know, there's no plastic, there's no paper. And so everything about that brand is not just about, hey, we want to be eco-friendly, but the entire hotel and the experience lives it, and it lets you live it. So when you have that kind of brand and it's a very differentiated product, then you don't have to work as hard to drive direct bookings, because the customers connect with it, they become loyal to it, they go and talk to their friends about it because it's different. It's just not a commodity product at that point. So, differentiated experience. Nobody wants to stay in shitty hotels, and Antoine did all the talk about why branding is so important, so we'll move on from that. Number 2, visibility on OTAs is just as important for your direct bookings. So when there was a point in my life where I was working for an OTA, and when I was working for an OTA, we made a real, we were shouting out about what was called the billboard effect at the time. You know, I think we've commissioned one of the Cornell professors to write a paper about it. And we just kind of assumed it to be true. But being on the hotel side, it was, you know, we really wanted to test this theory. And the perfect way to do that was whenever we were going through a very significantly heavy renovation. We tend to, you know, buy hotels that are maybe underperforming, a little bit tired, and then we transform the product. So we go through a lot of renovation, and then we do a lot of repositioning. And whenever we take rooms out of service in order to refurbish them, so we'll take 20, 30, 40, 50% of room stock out of order in order to get the refurbishment going, we noticed this. So these are 3 hotels as an example, but whenever we take rooms offline, we immediately start to see a decrease on the website traffic, which is strange because you would expect guests to come to our website before they can find out that we have 50% less rooms now. But actually, the traffic coming onto our website reduces by about 50% traffic in the case of the top graph that you're seeing there, before coming onto the website. Now, in the world of meta search and OTAs, it basically tells you right there that guests are coming to your website after they have found out about you and after they have seen that you had availability. It's not even just that they found out about you, they also knew you had availability or you didn't. And so too often I get into these meetings where, you know, somebody's talking about commissions in the business reviews and somebody's talking about direct booking share. And inevitably, somebody in the room might suggest, well, let's just turn them off. Let's give them less rooms. So let's, you know, we immediately start talking about restricting OTAs. But really, we have to be cognizant. I mean, this result may vary for other people, but 3 out of 3 we see the same result where the percentage of inventory reducing is directly correlating to the same percentage of traffic that you get on your website. Number 3, TripAdvisor is a marketplace. I think probably most of us know this already. I think some of us think of it as a reputation, kind of a review website. A lot of us now also think of it as a meta search. I don't know if there's anybody from TripAdvisor in here, because I don't know if it's even something you should be doing or should not be doing. But if you have a Business Advantage account with TripAdvisor, you can you can create your own competitor set within it, and then you can download some data, and it'll tell you stuff like what my popularity is and what kind of traffic I'm getting and what kind of traffic my competitor set's getting, and so on and so forth. It's really useful information. It's part of what makes that Business Advantage product so good. But here's the trick. You can go in there and get all your comp set in, download some data, and then change all your comp set again, download the data, change the comp set again, download the data, to a point where you download the entire market's data. So I've done it. And the reason why I did this is because we had a hotel, and that's the green dot on the right, that was number 3 in the market in terms of our popularity index. We were the 3rd best hotel in that city. But we were always struggling on leisure business for that particular hotel, right? The weekend business wasn't that great. We were basically sustained by the corporate bookings that we were getting midweek. And I went on a quest to find out, does having a very high popularity index correlate to the amount of traffic you receive onto your TripAdvisor page? And so this is the result. And generally speaking, yeah, I mean, you see the trend line. The higher your review scores are, or the more popular you are, the more traffic you receive. That's true. But my green dot receives about half of the traffic that are in that market, even though it's number 3. It's the 3rd, most popular hotel in that market. Then I saw something curious, which are the hotels that are in red. They are the shitty hotels. But they're getting so much traffic. They're like number, because again, so the higher you are, the more traffic you're getting. And it turns out that those hotels are doing the sponsored listings, sponsor placement. And it made me realize that TripAdvisor is no longer a place where the guests go to research after they have found out about you. It's actually the place where people could also begin their entire research and booking process. So the higher the visibility that you have on their sort order makes a great impact to your traffic. So if you're thinking about, or if you need to boost revenue, if you've got some soft periods in your future dates, do look at TripAdvisor as a place where you can boost your visibility. And sponsor listing, I think, can be a useful tool if you're not ranking high enough yet. However, review scores does seem to have a direct impact to your website's conversion percentage. So this was a rabbit hole, right? So once I've seen this and I'm thinking, okay, TripAdvisor is more like an OTA now. It is a place where I can get more visibility. But then how does the actual review score impact the bookings that I will receive from that traffic? Because people who start from TripAdvisor to begin their booking search might care more about the review scores that they're seeing. So when I broke down the kind of the funnel of the TripAdvisor pages, or the visits we were receiving on the TripAdvisor page, and then they click on that little visit website link, so the users that land on the website, and then ultimately who finish the booking, this is what the funnel looked like. So 4.5% click-through rate, let's call it, of that visit website link to our website, and then from our website, about 1.8% conversion. But when we broke that down further by the actual review score, the higher the review score, the higher the conversion rate. So if a hotel was in the 90 score bucket, it had 2% conversion, but if you were 60, down there, the conversion rate was 50%. That's a huge drop. And so it tells you that people do have, now, so this is the traffic that originated from TripAdvisor and then finally converting on your website. But it does tell you that the review score actually does have an impact to your overall website conversion rate. It also tells you that if your hotel's review score is somewhere in the 60 range, then you probably should not be spending so much money on sponsored place listings or anything. Your priority should probably be to fix that review score before you think about boosting the visibility. Which leads me to number 5, which is not exactly an insight, but it's a framework that we work with a lot of our hotels, which is we basically need to create a tactics playbook, which is a very honest tactics playbook that is bespoke to your hotel, a very specific hotel. And it looks something like this. We try to break down all of our tactics into 3 categories: channel share, market share, and mind share. Channel share is reducing cost of sale. That's the goal of the tactics that we're doing there. Market share is trying to gain share in the market. So that's your overall performance. You know what the total demand exists in the market, and you know you're not getting the fair share of it, so we got to do something to get it. Mind share is more brand marketing stuff. So this is the top of the funnel. And what is really useful to do is figure out which tactics that you deploy make the biggest difference in which one of these buckets. So, for example, brand search and meta search. I hear so often, I hear this a lot. So in business reviews, we'll sit around the table and we go, yes, May is looking incredibly soft and we need to do something. And then the marketing guy goes off and comes back and says, yes, our agency decided that we should spend more money on Meta. But Meta isn't going to help you out with your soft dates in the future. That might save you some money on the commissions you don't need to pay, but it's not going to fundamentally give you incremental bookings. Similarly, you also hear too often where the agency comes back and says, yes, I think if we spent another $5,000 on general search like hotels in London, I think that's going to help. There's a lot of dispute on whether that actually works or not because it's hard to measure. You got to think about attribution and how you calculate the ROI on it, and it usually takes a debate, and it's kind of a leap of faith for some people, but for others it's fairly straightforward. But the truth is, when we think about that kind of thing, we just have to think about all channels available to us. I always say, what can we do on OTAs first? Because that is cheaper. It's cheaper. If I have to pay 15% commission, 15% as my cost of sale, in order to get more market share, that is cheaper than getting, say, 100% cost of sale on direct last-click revenue, which may or may not be cheaper than that when you take the total attribution into consideration. But the point of this is, figure out which one of these tactics is most effective and most efficient into these buckets, and know exactly what they are. So when there are soft spots, or if you need to, say, reduce your commissions, you know exactly what your tactics you need to deploy. or when you see some soft spots in the future, you know exactly what tactics you need to deploy. But the one thing that I will say is the mindshare stuff. So by the way, the ROAS on here, that is obviously based on last click revenue. But again, over the course of a long term, you're probably, the long-term impact and the benefit of this actually inverses. So the mindshare stuff that you do today, which are going to take a long time for the results to manifest, but are ultimately going to be something that you'd want to be investing a lot of effort into. Only if your hotel has good reputation and it actually delivers good service, guests get good experience. If your hotel is not that great and you start, amplifying your brand marketing, you're still wasting your money. Now, there are probably some SEOs in here that think, what is that local SEO doing under that market share section? And first of all, why are we even talking about local SEO? That's like 2 years ago, right, when they got rid of their 4-pack. But local SEO is back in a really, really big way. If you haven't been thinking about local SEO, you need to be, because Google brought back their the 4-pack in the form of Google Hotel Ads, right? And I think immediately we start thinking, oh, Google Hotel Ads, that's Meta, right? We got to do Meta. That's where everybody kind of thinks about when they see Google Hotel Ads. But local SEO is, in my opinion, probably more important to do. So for example, we have a hotel called One Hotel Central Park, and bidding on a keyword such as hotels near Central Park can be expensive, right? $7, $8, $9 per click. And if you ever try to rank #1 on hotel near Central Park, I don't care what agency, they're lying. You'll never be on page 1. It just will not happen. You are one hotel, OTAs and meta search and all these websites out there that have multiple hotels that they can offer to an end user. A single hotel website just isn't relevant for that particular search. But we now have a method to rank #1 or within 4 in the form of local SEO. So while Google is expanding its reach and also expanding its influence, getting into the hospitality industry, actually I think this change, I love it. I think we can get behind this one, because if you can do your SEO job correctly, you can get there. So we worked on this relentlessly, and if you Google search now, hotels near Central Park, in incognito mode, you'll see One Hotel Central Park ranking #1, and that immediately gives you the market share, right? Because now, people that are in the research stage, they see us as #1. And then once a user clicks through on that, then what happens next is your meta search. So that is your channel share. So you obviously need to do both. Otherwise, you're doing a great work to be spent by the OTAs. But again, it becomes a performance optimization or maximization exercise here and a cost of sale exercise there. But that's not everything either, because there are lots of statistics going around about what percentage of searches are now being done on voice. And I hear numbers as high as 45, 50%. And I think the truth is a lot of those searches are just some basic questions. But with Google Assistant, Google Home, Alexa, and Siri and all these devices, I think there's only one way where this is headed, and that is voice. It's going to be so incredibly important, and being on position 1 or being position 0 on any of the organic searches are going to be that much more important. So one of the benefits of working on the local SEO now, for you to try and get on to #1, is that you also get to benefit from voice search.
Hey Google, what's the best hotel near Central Park?
I found a few places. The first one is One Hotel Central Park at 1414 6th Avenue in New York.
Yes. So talk to your SEO guys and figure out how you guys can work on that as well. So number 7, guess who searched leave interesting clues. So once you have the traffic onto your website, one thing we do really well is understanding the demand after the booking has happened, but not a lot of us really track the searches that the guests perform on the website. And I mean, what dates are people looking to book without actually booking? So if you track this data, you'll see some really interesting data start to emerge. Well, number 1, you can see what your actual demand dates are by number of searches. I mean, in the old days, we used to call this like regret and denial. I don't know if a lot of us remember, nobody calls anymore, but we used to track these things, right? So it's the same thing, but you're doing it on the website. So you can finally see how many people are searching and how many people are booking, figure out your conversion dates for specific arrival dates, and that'll influence your pricing strategy. But also important and interesting are for the digital marketers in the room, who are constantly optimizing our spend and the campaigns, but they're doing it without real understanding of the behavior of the customers that are searching on your website. So for example, this is the kind of useful information that you can see. On one of our hotels, for example, and actually this happens on a lot of our hotels, so I think it might just be a general trend across the board, but again, each hotel is different. When we looked at the number of searches that were happening on Saturdays, particularly on mobile devices, we could basically see that like nearly 90% of all of those searches were looking for rooms for that day. That day. That means if I'm spending any kind of PPC money or anything on Saturdays, targeting only mobile devices, that's a useful information to know. I mean, if my hotel sold out and I knew that, I shouldn't have any campaigns running, right? And you're just wasting your money. And I don't have the graph on here, but another example is when we looked at something like the guests who were searching on midweek between 9 to 5, the traffic that were coming from Bing were all looking for like that Tuesday and Wednesday arrivals or something like that. And so if you're full or if you're already very, if you're compressed on those days, you probably want to rethink how you're designing your campaigns. So if you're not tracking the searches on your website, please do have a look. It will be interesting. Number 8, the guests who don't book have a lot of interesting stories to tell. The problem is we don't know what stories they've got to tell, and we don't ask. But if you put some kind of a survey or a widget or something that just pops up on your booking engine during that process and just ask the simple question, why aren't you booking with us today? You get a lot of answers. And you'll be surprised at how many people actually take their time to tell you about it. They'll tell you all about it. And this is a sample of kind of the type of responses that we got at one of our hotels, and it looks something like this. And of course, the number one reason is because the price is too high, right? I mean, our price wasn't in line with what they had expected. And they'll tell you some of these other things, and you just kind of have to categorize them because it gets real wordy. Some of them are bitter, and some of them are not very helpful or useful. Some of them tell you to go away. But if you categorize them, and even when you get answers that you don't think are that useful, such as price is too high, it's actually a really useful information. So in this example, we looked at this and thought, there's obviously a misalignment of pricing expectation for this hotel. And so what would happen if we just, if we try to convey this a little bit more on the ads that we put out there, on all the creatives? Maybe we actually do put a from rate, knowing that that may have a detrimental impact to our click-through rate. But actually what happened was, yes, the click-through rate did go down, but the conversion rate increased. In the end, we spent less money on advertisement dollars, and we got similar, the same kind of number of bookings anyhow. And so that was a very useful cost of sale exercise. But just kind of realigning that cost expectation alone was making a big difference. Only 1 photos. That was an obvious one. Why do we only have 1 photos for each room? The OTAs demand at least 4 or 5 photos per room type. We only had 1. So we loaded more rooms, increased our conversion. It was really that simple. Cancellation policy, we were trying to use the same kind of language like pay now, pay later. But then like when we were loading rates, we were missing out the pay now and pay later and called it something different, like, summer sale or something. And now people are getting all confused about, is this pay now or pay later? Like your policy says if it's pay now, it's this, and pay later, it's that. So we changed that. Increases your conversion rate. Check-in and check-out. It's real simple thing. This one, it just says, this is our check-in time, this is our check-out time. And a lot of people were responding back on this and said, what if I need to check in like an hour early, right? They don't want to book because of that. And what might probably happen is they're going to pick up a phone and call us, probably. So just adding a simple text such as, if you need flexibility, we will try and accommodate you, based on availability. Stuff like that was making a real impact to the conversion rate. So the real the action on this is, if you're not asking or seeking feedback from your customers on your booking engine today, we should, because they've got some interesting stories to tell, and if we just ask, we're going to get some of those responses that we can use to really improve our performance. Number 9, people love deals. This seems so straightforward. And I think we can all agree that people really do love deals. But you sometimes get into these heated debates. What percentage of sale, promotion, or offers is good? We don't want to be appearing to be too cheap. And so, we're not going to do any deals. Or we have already our advanced purchase thing at 10%. I think that's good enough. But this is actually not about the running a sale or not running a sale. This is actually about whenever there is a discount to any rates that we put out there, we need to call out that there is a discount on that thing. So too often on some of the booking engines that we see, you have a rate of 100 for, bar, and then you might have a rate of 90 for advanced purchase. But none of there calls out the fact that, hey, it's a 10% discount. None of that it calls out and go, hey, you have to pay now, but you get a discount. That it's a discount, it's an offer, it's a sale. Like, we don't actually call it out. So we did a simple experiment where we changed nothing on the booking engine, but we went all out, right? It was that same thing that I just talked about, but we had a strike through and made the percentage in really big fonts with contrasting colors, just to highlight the fact that this rate is a discounted rate. And this was the result. So the green line is the conversion rate on the booking engine. And that section that you see there is when we simply did nothing, but just really went all out to call out the fact that this is a promotion. And it was our standard advanced purchase type rate. But we really wanted to make sure that the customers was feeling like they were getting a deal. And there was a huge uplift in conversion rate. That is near 3 standard deviations away from our means. That is statistically significant uplift in conversion rate. It was an amazing result. And so of course, you would always have to kind of think about what your branding strategy is and how you want your customers to perceive you and things. But just do keep in mind that sometimes all it takes is just calling out that the customer is getting a good deal. That's all. Number 10, and lastly, this was really kind of the cornerstone of the presentation that I did last year, which is that whenever we're analyzing the data, that we should really be doing it in a multi-dimensional format rather than a single-dimensional format. And so what I mean by that is, let's not look at, well, how much production did we get by channel, but you just ask another layer of question on top of it, which is how much production did we get out of each channel by a booking window in this example, or by length of stay, or by room type. I mean, it doesn't matter, but you get the point, because when you break it out like this is when you can understand which channels are delivering the bookings in which key segments. So you see that in this example that Expedia is delivering the most of bookings within 60-day booking window, whereas the booking window for website is much shorter. So if you knew that information, you would be yielding your rates quite differently. You would manipulate your booking curve. You would almost restrict. You wouldn't want as many bookings to come in as early as that 60 days, because you know that you've got this pent-up demand waiting to come in within 7-day window that you're going to miss out on if you were selling your rooms way too early in advance. And so I hope this was a useful insights that you guys can take away and try to tinker about in your own hotels. But yeah, thank you very much.